maybe we could go into the psychobiology of gene expression. You know, my love and your love, and you've obviously vast more experience with the work of Ernest Rossi, etc. You use an ideodynamic response, okay, as far as I know, and it bypasses the conscious cognitive functions, which is really something unique. You know, if we go into the work of Ernest Rossi and what you studied, and I'd love you to give a demonstration if you have time. Maybe just a quick demonstration, maybe using your hands or whatever.
The idea behind
the
idea behind it is most things we do with words. Not everyone. There's always exceptions to every rule. Most people think in words. They operate in words. We have other levels of thinking as well, but our everyday, we walk around streets talking to ourselves in our heads. We question things all the time. If I was, for example, hypnotizing you, there's a very good chance that, say I was being very authoritarian and saying, you're now going deeper and deeper, your body is now becoming more and more relaxed, and you're sat there thinking, because you talk to yourself, no, it's not. This isn't happening. My body is no more relaxed than it was 5 seconds ago. No, my body's still not relaxed. And you're talking to yourself and undoing anything I'm possibly trying to do. So, because of that, because you can talk to yourself, you can have that inner dialogue, because you can question me out verbally as well, and because you have conscious free will, so you can think, oh, I'm not comfortable with this, so I'm not going to do this. All of these things can stand in the way of getting therapy done. So one thing that you can do is actually take the other approach of, well, let's not do something the conscious mind understands. Let's let the conscious mind be an observer. Instead of communicating with it, we will let it be an observer. So for example, many, many years ago, probably 2003, something like that, so 10 years ago, it's a really bad quality video, but I got a video of it. I say to this guy, he was a hypnotist, so he knew about hypnosis, and so he knew that anything I did, he would know what I was doing. So I said to him, put your hands on your legs and look at the hand that you think will lift up. Now, if he said, I don't think either hand's going to lift up, that's fine. Look at those hands and see whether you're correct or not, because I've already implied one's going to lift up. If he'd said, I think it's going to be the left hand, okay, so look at the left hand. If he says, I think it's going to be the right hand, okay, look at the right hand. I don't care whether he thinks it's one, two, the other, both, none, I don't care. Because I didn't ask him consciously to lift a hand. I said, look at the hand you think will lift. So I wanted his opinion. Look at the hand that you think will be the one that lifts up. Means one will lift up. The question is, are you going to be right or wrong about which one? So it bypasses the conscious part of the brain. Now obviously there's always exceptions. Someone could just say, I'm standing up and walking out of here because I'm not going to have either hand lift up. So someone could do that. For him, I think he said I think it'll be my left hand. So okay, so look at your left hand and let's see if you're right. And then one of his hands lifted up. I can't remember whether he was right or wrong, but that wasn't remotely important to me. And I hear lots of hypnotherapists saying that they're not confident yet. They're not confident enough to do hypnotherapy. They don't think they've got the skill. And I meet them at courses. I attend courses and then I see them at another course and I think, but you're at the last course. Are you here just to learn and gather more, as I am? Are you here just to learn and keep up your continued professional development and that? Oh no, I haven't started working with clients yet because I'm not confident enough to hypnotise people yet. But you're on the course I was on last time, and that was a brilliant course. That means that you should be confident enough. And it would confuse me because I think, how can you not be confident if you've done training that I think is brilliant training? How can you not be a confident therapist? So by doing this approach of talking to the unconscious mind and not the conscious mind, and communicating in one way or another with the unconscious mind, means you totally bypass that part of it. You don't have to worry about being a hypnotherapist anymore. You don't care what the response is consciously anymore. So I can sit there, when I did this, and as I say, this was like 2003, that's 10 years ago, I hadn't had very much clinical experience back then. I'd been doing hypnosis, in 2003 I'd been doing hypnosis for 10 years, but I hadn't done any clinical type work until 2002. So other than I'd helped a few people stop smoking, and I'd done things like helped someone to stop wetting the bed, and I'd done sports improvement and things like that.
Yes.
But I hadn't actually learned about depression. I hadn't actually gone on a psychotherapy course until then. So I was quite new to doing clinical type work, above and beyond suggestion-y kind of therapy. And yet I was confident to do this because I wasn't going to be asking them consciously anything. I was just going to be asking them to observe what happens consciously. So the conscious mind is just an observer, and I was treating it as that.
Yes,
in the same way that you walk, you stand up and you walk, you don't think about walking. You might look down at your legs, but you're not making your legs walk by looking down at them. You're just an observer. Your conscious mind knows you're getting from A to B. You've made that decision, I'm going to nip down the shops. You made that decision, and then your legs did the job. You didn't think, right, going to nip down the shops, so I've got to make, which muscle shall I move first? And there's just too much effort. You're not going to be able to do it. So what you want is
direct
have the
contact
conscious
with the
mind, have the
yes.
conscious mind and observer. And you can do that in many ways. So as I say, you can do that by asking questions that imply the conscious mind is just an observer. So you ask a question where you're asking, in Ericksonian therapy, it's asking about implications and it's using implications and not actually asking for something directly. So you're not dictating what's going on, you're just setting a scene for something. So it could be asking a double bind like I just gave. Which hand do you think is the one that's going to lift up? And it'll be a left hand, a right hand, both hands, no hands, it doesn't matter. They're just asked to observe. It could be rub your hands together and then just notice a sensation between them. And if your unconscious is willing to work on a problem now, will it move those hands together or apart? So you've implied it's going to work on something, and then just watch and notice what happens. And you just keep their attention on something. So their attention in this case is perhaps on the space between the hands and on what's going on between the hands. It could be that you do it with ideomotor movements. You say, okay, look at that hand, and I wonder which one will move to signal yes. I wonder which one will move to signal no. When one does, just let it signal clearly. And then they watch the hand, and you watch the hand expectantly, and then you see one move or twitch or something. And you know, right, so that's the yes hand or the yes finger or no finger, or it could be something else. So you could even, again, use double binds and say, do you think it will be the forefinger on the left hand or the right hand that signals yes? And when it's ready, we'll find out. And then one signals yes. So, or it could be something entirely different. So they say, I don't know, it might be something different. They might say, I've got this feeling in my chest. So, oh, does that mean yes? Or what does that mean? And they say, I get a sense it means yes. And I've had that happen. I've gone for a finger signal, and they've said, I'm getting this feeling in my chest. And I've said, what does that mean? And they've said, oh, that means yes. Okay, so when you get that feeling in the chest, it means yes. And let me know when you get the no signal. And then you just wait, and they'll give you a no signal. So it's having that flexibility of it. The conscious mind is the observer. I know Rossi talks a lot about using implied directive, where it is about implication. It's about directing through implication as opposed to dictating something. And it is
very
about,
much against that, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is about bypassing. If I say to somebody, your hands will move together when the work begins, if their hands start doing that and moving apart, and the work's beginning,
then
they think, what's going on here? This isn't right. You've told me that they move together. Whereas if you say, I don't know whether they'll move together or apart as the work begins, then it doesn't matter. You've just asked them to observe as well. And it is about having that curiosity. And that's the whole thing with doing ideodynamic therapy. Ideodynamic is just automatic It's some kind of automatic experience. So idiomotor is automatic movement, idiosensory is automatic sensations or thinking,
Yes.
Idioaffective is automatic feelings.
Yes.
So you've got all these different ideodynamic approaches you can come up
Yes,
with. So
yes.
suddenly you create your own, you can do whatever's right, but what you're looking for is what is the automatic thing, and just be a joint curious observer of it
Yeah.
with the client. So you're not doing the work as such, the client isn't doing the work, a deeper part of them is doing the work, you're just all observers.
Fascinating, isn't it?
And it definitely
Absolutely fascinating,
bypasses any kind of resistance. It's very hard to, if they've chosen to be
Oh,
there,
yes,
it's
yes,
very hard for them
yes.
then to resist. Other than walking out the room,
Yeah.
it's very hard for them to resist something and say this isn't going to work or that isn't going to work.
It's
So,
a natural process.
yeah, if they say
Yes.
this isn't going to work, well, let's observe and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just watch and see what happens. So you don't end up, which again, why would you not be a confident therapist? You know, whatever a client comes up with, like, this isn't going to work, this is a whole load of mumbo jumbo. Okay, well, let's just watch those hands and see whether you're right.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
It's,
I've noticed that some people that do tend to resist, you try to take them into trance, and they resist, but in the end, there are quite a few observations you can make, and they are in a trance, and they're in a resisting trance.
and that's the thing.
Yeah, no, which is quite
perspective
quite
of
incredible.
reality.
You know,
People
when-
talk
yes,
about hypnosis, people
Yes.
talk about trance.
yeah,
My belief is that trance is the fundamental heart of what it means to be a living being.
yes,
That any living being is in trance.
yeah.
And the question is, how deep in a trance are you and what type of trance are you in? So, for example, someone that's depressed, you could say they're in a depression trance.
Yeah.
And my perspective of what a trance is it's a narrow focus of attention on an unconscious level, so it's lower than your consciousness, that influences every aspect of your being. So, for example, if someone's in a depression trance, everything bad that ever happens to them is constant. That's just the way things are. I expect bad things to happen. Everything good that ever happens to them is, oh, well, that was just a one-off. It was just temporary. That was just a blip. I don't know what happened on that day. Everything good that happens to them is someone else's fault. So, oh, that good thing only happened because so-and-so made it happen. Everything bad that happens is their fault. Oh, that's really bad. Oh, I'm useless. I'm rubbish. Everything bad always happens to me. So they might acknowledge that someone else is at fault in the situation, but the fact that the bad thing happened to them is their fault. I'm just destined to have bad things happen to me, and so that's just what I expect. You know, the reason the car crash happened or the reason we got pranged is, yes, they pranged into us, and so they were to blame, but I'm just unlucky. So obviously it's my fault. If I wasn't in the car with you, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So they can acknowledge, yes, that person behind, they can see the logic, the person behind is the
Oh,
one
yes,
that didn't
yes,
have
yes.
enough distance, braking distance, and so they slammed into you. But they would see it as, but if I wasn't in your car with you, this wouldn't have happened, because bad things just happened to me.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
the trance, the other one is around luck. If you
Yeah.
believe you're lucky,
Yeah.
then, and you walk along a street and there's a £10 note, you see it and pick it up. If you believe you're
Yeah.
unlucky, you walk along a street and there's a £10 note, you walk past it because you don't see it.
Yeah.
So it shapes your entire reality. Trance
Oh,
is,
yes.
people talk about, I don't often hear it talked about quite how I talk about it. What normally people do is they say, oh, you've got beliefs and your reality is created through your beliefs. And then they say, then you've got, you've got your identity and you've got this and you've got that. And they talk about all different parts, but actually what you want is all of these to change at the same time. And the fundamental thing that does that is trance. Is when you are in a trance, for example, people that are depressed have a lower threshold for pain. They feel pain far more. People that are depressed see the world as dull, so they see colours as more washed out. And from their perspective, they're not really aware of it because their reality is their reality. They're seeing it from their perspective, from in it. But when it comes to, if you ask them to paint something or whatever it happens to be, their reality is far more washed out than someone who's happy, who sees things as vibrant and bright. So, because trance, my belief is because trance is such a fundamental part of reality and of human what it means to be a living being, including human. When you access trance, I don't believe in hypnosis as such. I believe that hypnosis is the art of accessing or directing people's trances, helping people from one trance state to another. And a deep trance is someone being totally focused and absorbed in that moment, or totally unabsorbed. So it's a single point. So someone, say, meditating on nothingness, could lose all attachment with everything around them. That means there's only one thing there, which is non-attachment. So even though that's nothing, it's still only one thing, if you look at a quantity-based thing. But the opposite is true, that if you can go the other extreme, so it's like a bit like a bell curve. So you've got one end of, so a bell curve is in science, is when you plot things on a graph, it forms the shape of a bell. So for example, hypnotizability is a bell curve. You've got people at one end, a minority of people that are incredibly hypnotizable, really easy to hypnotize using a standard induction. On the other end, you've got people that won't go into trance at all based on that standard induction. And then in the middle, you've got the most people that are somewhere on that range of being able to do something or other with that induction. And so that's a bell curve. And my belief is that trance in general is just like that. So you've got no point, no focus, so you've totally unattached from reality completely. That could well be, say, with a number of spiritual type practices, it could be the aim of them, is to reach that point where you manage to gradually unattach things all the way through to the point where there's no attachment to anything left, and you just are in that zone where there's no thought, there's no feeling, there's no nothing, you're just there. And if you think about being there, you've ruined it, because you've thought about being there, but you're just there. That would be one end. The other end would be gradually you increase the amount of attachment. The other end is every single bit of your being is totally focused on one thing. So you've got, in between is the range. So a deep trance is either every bit of your being is not attached to anything, so there's nothing. The other end is, as it goes over it, over the bell curve, you've got, oh, I can hear the birds singing, oh, I can hear the traffic, but at the same time I'm also going into a trance. So you've got the middle bit where you're connected to other bits every now and then as well as your own inner stuff, all the way over to I can feel I'm in this state, I can sense I'm in this state, I can see in this through this state of mind, I can hear through this state of mind.
That's right.
My beliefs are in this state of mind, everything is through this one thing. And that's when I hypnotise people. Some people say, oh, I don't think I was in such a deep trance then because I wasn't as relaxed as I was put, and they associate it with relaxation. And that's the mistake they make, that they say, I don't think I was in such a deep trance because I wasn't as relaxed, because that's how they measure deep trance. Whereas the truth of it is, how much of your attention was focused on the task at hand and was focused on being in that specific trance.
How much was closed down to all the surroundings.
Which comes with its own set of beliefs. So if you were in a state of mind, and that's why hypnotic techniques like covert hypnotic techniques can work with anything. If I wanted, not that I necessarily would, but if I wanted, I could induce depression in someone in the same way that I can induce hypnosis in someone. It's no different. And all hypnosis is really the optimal
We're doing that
state.
most of the day as we go through our life. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people are inducing.
Well, that's the thing. My
states.
approach to interactions with others is that we're all in our own trances, and our trance is like a reality. So we've got our reality that we share, which is this one physical thing that's around us, but then we have a map that lays over that reality, that's our own reality. And when we're near someone else, our reality overlaps with their reality, and there's a zone in the middle where if we're going to interact with each other, then that interaction between us is a shared reality. So I could step into your reality a little bit, and I could be here whinging and whining and moaning and complaining and being all depressed, and that could begin because I'm in your reality and you're in my reality, and we're shared
reality.
We've come into each other. We've come into each other's awareness, which means that we're sharing a bit of our realities. means that my reality could dilute yours and affect yours. I could share some of my depression reality, flooding yours a bit, making your happy reality less happy.
Yeah.
So I could bring you
yes,
down.
Yes.
Likewise, you could do the same to me. You could lift me up.
Lift you up.
You could be the more dominant reality that then lifts me up out of it. So we all do this all the time anyway. So in my opinion, that's no different to doing covert hypnosis. Is I'm depressed, so I'm going to sit next to you, and then you're going to become depressed because I'm just going to talk to you. I'm not going to tell you to become depressed, but by sitting talking to you and being depressed myself, you're going to become depressed. So that, and likewise the same with the happy thing. Yeah, you could go into a situation, so I'm going to sit next to this person and they're going to become happy because I am, and then it rubs off on them. And people talk about that. They say, oh, it just rubs off on you. They have a personality that rubs off on you. And what it is actually their trance. They've got more control over influencing your trance from within their own trances than you have of influencing back.
Probably because their trance is more real to them than yours is.
Well, I don't think they have an awareness of whether it's more real or not. I just think it's a case of when you're in the same state of, like we're near enough to each other to me that you're aware that I'm here and I'm aware that you're there. So if I was being, I think it's where is the focus. So if I'm the one doing all the talking and I'm talking about being deeply depressed and miserable and just having the worst life ever, and you're focusing on me thinking, God, will he not just shut up? You're focusing on me, which means you're focusing on my trance. So the more you focus on me, the more my trance is going to be becoming your trance, because
that's right.
That is the trance you're beginning to absorb or focus your attention on. So at the same time as focusing your attention on my trance, the bits that are focused on your old happy trance are unattaching, because you can't focus on everything. So the bits are unattaching from your trance and attaching to mine because you're focusing on me talking.
I could be in a different trance. I could be thinking, pull yourself together.
Yeah, exactly. In which case,
entranced
I
by
wouldn't
my
then
own
bring you
thoughts
down.
and ideas.
In which case, I wouldn't bring you down. So if you sat there and then I talked to you and I was being all depressed, and you were just thinking, "Oh, pull yourself together. You're just being stupid."
Which the majority of people do go down that road.
Well, most people end up being drawn in.
Yeah.
But if you were doing that, you wouldn't get sucked into my trance. But you would probably, if you come in happy, you'd probably change into a
Oh, you wouldn't
perhaps
go out
miserable
quite so
trance
happy.
or an annoyed trance.
No.
But you wouldn't go into my trance. And likewise, and obviously as a therapist, that's part of what I do. If I go into a situation, I'm being really optimistic and I'm believing in a client and I've got this trance where, well, that's the only reality to me, is that you do have all the resources you need, even if you don't know that you do. You are going to be able to achieve success. I don't know when, I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, next week, next year,
right.
but I do believe you've got the ability to achieve success. If I've got this trance, and I can get them absorbed in my trance, and focused on what I'm saying, that rubs off on them. And that's the thing, you always find people that can command attention are the ones that control the trance that's going to be going on in the people around them. And that is all, in my opinion, that's all hypnosis really is. It's, you don't, I know lots of language patterns, I can tell you all the confusing stuff, I can talk in very confusing ways, I can do things that will manipulate you without you realising that it's happening. But ultimately, all I have to do to hypnotise someone, nowadays, I don't do hardly any of that. All I do is just think, well, you're in a trance, I'm in a trance. I'd rather have you in the trance that I think would be best for you. So that's what we're going to go for. And then I will do my best to influence that trance state.
It does seem that's the way things are progressing now, doesn't it? The work of Ernest Rossi and a chap called Greg Braden. They're talking now about a field. Whether or not it exists, I don't know. But
well, again, it comes down to how you define it, because in my mind, I think of it almost like a waveform or a wave field or something. That, for example, I'm sitting here talking to you. If I was treating you as a client and you were telling me about a problem, I would naturally start doing gestures towards you when talking about things that I want you to be closer to. So if you said, oh, if only I had more happiness in my life, I might say, so when you've got more happiness in your life, what's that like? So I'll push it towards you. If you said,
Yes.
if only I had less sadness, or if only, when I look back on that, it just really, really upsets me. So I might say, so when you've got that old, and I'll move it away from you. So I do gestures to the client, not gestures to myself. So I don't say, bring that up near you. I don't gesture to me. I go, bring that up near you. So I gesture the right way round. In my head, I've got this map that overlays with your map. And I just see it like that. So I see it as we all have a bubble around us that extends infinitely. It's not just a little bubble, it extends infinitely. But once you have an awareness of something else in your reality, so if you look up to the stars, your experience of those stars will be based on the trance you're in. So it extends for as far as you can see. But if we come into contact, they merge, they mix somewhere in the middle. And then whose trance you leave with will be based on how long you're in that company of that person, and how much someone can command attention. So for example, I've sat down and taught people hypnosis, and I love hypnosis, so I've been so passionate about it that there was someone I was teaching, and I went in at about 9 a.m. and I was so passionate about this hypnosis that it was 5 p.m. and we hadn't eaten, we hadn't done anything, we just talked. We hadn't got up to go to the toilet, and they thought, God, I thought it was only like an hour had passed. I hadn't done hypnosis. I just talked about hypnosis, but so passionately and so focused on enjoying what I'm talking about that they got drawn into my passion and got really absorbed in that, and they took it on board. That time vanished, that hunger vanished, and in the toilet vanished, and all that vanished just because I was the more dominant trance in that situation. I was the one that they were going to take on. Given the trance field, I was the field that was going to be the dominant one that they were going to live in. And that happens in cults and in religions and things like that, is that people walk into an environment where the dominant trance, and as I say, the trance controls what you're going to believe, what you think your identity is, what you think your capabilities are, how you perceive others. All of everything about existence comes into that trance. So if you walk into, say you become involved with a cult, you're a bit, you're looking for something, you're on a bit of a search. So you're thinking, what is the point in life? So you're going on a bit of a search. Then suddenly there's this really nice, kind, friendly person there, and they start telling you, well, I've got some really great ideas, and they start telling you these ideas, and you think, well, actually, they are really great ideas, and that gives me meaning, that gives me hope. And so suddenly you buy into what they say. And they say, I have these meetings. You can always come along. I'm going to be giving a talk on it. So you then go along to this meeting, and then everyone else believes what this guy already says anyway. So the dominant trance in the room is you've got 50 people that believe what this guy says, and this guy. You're watching this guy and trying to be absorbed in what he's saying, and everyone around you believes him already. So the dominant trance is gonna, in most people, is going to rub off on you and make you then become a cult member as well. And then you see reality through how the cult tells you to see the reality. So suddenly you're trapped in this whole, this is how I'm supposed to believe the world exists. But you don't realise you're doing that because you're in it. A bit like a fish doesn't realise it's in water because it's in it. So
what I like about therapy, especially, as we say, the works of Erickson and Ernest Rossi, is that there's no traps. There's no fixed ideas. No fixed ideas about anything. It's just a free flow. That the unconscious can come up with ideas, etc. Go into one trance, but you can't identify that and say that's the end of it. We found it. We've discovered something. Like science, because science is totally changing all the time. With ideas and concepts, now they're coming out with this field idea. But my own opinion is I expect you'll agree. The more they focus on it, the more the field will come into existence and be created. So it's a creative process, and that's why I've become so interested in following what you've taught and the works of it. Erickson.
Well, I
Yes.
personally, once I realised that, because I used to do hypnosis where I'd read scripts. I used to do
Yeah.
hypnosis. That's how I was initially taught, was about reading scripts. I used to do hypnosis where I used to think, right, I've got to get this person into a trance by doing this. I've got to look to see that they're doing that. I've got to. Now I just think, well, you're a being, I'm a being, we're communicating, and as long as I can communicate ideas and hopefully get enough absorption from you,
Yes.
that you go with the ideas that I'm communicating and you're willing to accept a slight shift in trance, because that's the other
Yes.
thing. I've spoken before about just breaking down a trance slightly. So someone lives in their little trance, but if you can break that down a bit by showing exceptions and things. So if you do it overtly, if you say to somebody, oh look, there's an exception to your rule, that doesn't work. It's a bit like religion. If really fundamental religionists, people that believe 100%, like the Earth was 6,000 years old or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
If you then say, well, this was only formed by 2 billion years worth of erosion or something, they'll say, no, it wasn't, you're wrong, a flood did that. Or they'll still stick to that, because so even though you're pointing out an exception, because you're doing it very blunt and straight to their face, that isn't the way that our unconscious mind works. That's how we try and rationalise things and think consciously. So what ends up happening is you hit a brick wall. You say, here's a good idea, or someone that's depressed. But 2 weeks ago I was at a party with you and you were laughing, you were smiling, you were dancing around, you were, spinning your pants in the air and you were having a great time.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're always depressed and never have a good time? You look like you're having fun then. Oh, well, I thought I was, but when I look back on it, I wasn't. I was just pretending. And you've just given them an exception, a real rational, honest, genuine. You can guarantee they were having fun, and they won't see it. So you end up having to find alternative ways.
Oh yes.
in.
Yes.
And that's what I quite like about Rossi's work and Erickson's work and this whole approach.
Yes.
And the idea that it's about getting that little chink in the armour.
Yeah.
So you don't try and attack someone else's trance from head on from a conscious perspective, because the trance isn't created consciously. The trance is created unconsciously. Just like if you have, I don't know, say you had a saltwater, say a freshwater lake, and you wanted to turn it into a saltwater lake, you wouldn't be able to do that by trying to pour everything in at once. What you would do is perhaps mix them a bit and have a place for some water to come in and a place for some water to go out. So as salt water floods in from the sea, perhaps some of the fresh water at the other end of the lake is able to flood out to give space for the salt water. So it's easier to do that than to have a lake that has no exit and then just try and fill it with salt water when it's already full of fresh water. It's a bit like, obviously, the thing that I think nearly every culture seems to have is about, you've got to empty a glass before you can fill it again. If you're already full of information, you need to be empty to learn something new. I know Bruce Lee used to say similar things, that you've got to have an empty mind before you can fill it. So whatever's come before, you've got to get rid of that first.
Yes.
You can't build some types of knowledge on the ideas you've currently got, because they're not compatible. So the same goes for, say, someone that's depressed.
Yes.
You can't just suddenly force happiness upon them by, say, pointing things out, like someone with a phobia. You can't just say, you can't just say to somebody with a phobia, that is stupid. Do you not realise that plane crashes are incredibly rare, and you're more likely to die when you're in a car than in a plane? Because I think, but I know that, but I'm still scared of planes. So you can't do it by attacking it like that. What you have to do is just change the trance.
Yeah.
So you have to say, right, let's work straight on the trance itself. And you can with exceptions, but not direct exceptions. So you can say, so when have things been working well for you? And if they say nothing's ever worked well, so when haven't they been so bad? Well, I suppose they weren't quite so bad when this happened, or when that happened, or I suppose I handled things a bit better then. So you're nudging gently on the trance and beginning to
Oh, yes.
dilute it
Yeah.
to the point where you then have more and more influence. And I think my goal in therapy, more from a research point of view, is that I want to find that magic bullet, almost, that magic thing that says this is the way that the unconscious works. This is how unconscious minds can communicate to each other without conscious being needed. Because I think other animals do it. Other animals understand each other without making a sound. They understand to follow each other, to form into a pack, how they're going to hunt when they're doing this hunting, how they're going to do that. They don't sit down and get out a pen and paper and start planning it on a...
No.
Right, if you just flank round there and you circle them and block that exit and we'll go round here and they don't do that. A pack of wolves just communicate unconsciously. They know what they're going to do. They just do it.
Our verbal communication has really caused a lot of problems, hasn't it? Terrific amount of problems, abuse and that. Yeah. I mean, you come across people that are always searching for happiness. They're going from one cult to another. Ernest Rossi did that. And he said he became more and more sucked into all these different cults. They wanted to take him over. So, how can you be fixed to any idea or any belief? When everything is flowing and changing, and there's always something exciting, something new to discover.